Okay, while we're working with fractions, we're going to be using models a lot because it's just a good way to visually see what's going on. But we don't want students to think that fractions are just these circles that are colored in. So you have to be careful with models. I often just really emphasize that models are a good way to start thinking about the fraction. It's a nice way to get you warmed up about the size of the piece, how much of the whole you have, but we can't rely on fractions to prove like one is bigger than the other, right? The one is representing a larger amount. So that said, let's talk about how we can easily draw some pretty accurate models when you have to. So half is easy, right? You're going to find yourself drawing halves a lot. So halves. Now, when we draw fourths, you all know you're going to go horizontally, right? But let's think about terminology we can use to help your student as they move forward into the later grades where they're going to be making equivalent fractions with multiplication and division. So if we can say, I'm going to now make a fraction that has a different number of parts, but I'm going to make each of these halves have twice as many parts. So that half now has 2 parts and that half has 2 parts. So let's say we had that 1/2 colored in, right? That goes with that one. And now we've made fourths. So 1/2 is the same as, I now have how many parts in the whole? 4. And it takes 2 of those to make it be the same amount. So later on, they'll be multiplying, right? They'll be multiplying by 2/2 to create an equivalent fraction. But if you can use that terminology, that the parts, you're making twice as many parts because that is what you're doing. You're giving them twice as many parts. So in order for it to be equal, it has to be twice as many pieces. Same thing when we go from fourths to eighths. I'm taking each of these fourths and making it into twice as many pieces. And now I have eighths. So that's simple. We can even show them twice as, or even just at this point, saying it is enough, but twice as many pieces. We have eighths, and I need to give you 4 of them to make it be the same amount. So halves, fourths, and eighths are related, and they're fairly easy to draw in a circle. Thirds and sixths will be another one that you'll see. So in order to draw thirds, starting with a dot is actually the easiest. And it's never going to be perfect. We talk a lot about how models are not going to be perfect. In real life, when I'm really talking about a third, I mean that 3 of the exact same amount. A third means, if I call this a third, it's because it takes 3 of that exact amount to create the whole. Well, this is just a visual model to get me thinking about thirds. Even so, let's shade in 1/3. And I'm going to make sixths now. And so I'm going to take each of these thirds, and instead of having one big piece, I'm going to have twice as many pieces in each of the thirds. And I'm going to end up with sixths. And I'm going to need to give you 2 of those if it's going to be the same amount. So halves, fourths, and eighths go together. Thirds and sixths go together. And those will be the ones that you'll be using the most. But again, use models for what they're good for, and let's not rely on them too much, but use them as a way to start the thought process. And then we can move from reasoning, from the model to reasoning, in order to really mathematically prove which one is larger or which one's equivalent.